Hello, Thyroid Thrivers, and welcome back to another episode of the Thyroid-Healthy Bites podcast, with bi-weekly episodes dedicated to helping you eat well, live well, and feel well. I'm Jenny Mahar, a functional medicine health coach, cordon bleu chef, and your thyroid health and cooking coach. So if you're ready to get inspired, informed, and empowered with thyroid-friendly food and lifestyle topics, expert interviews, and tales from the healing journey, you're in the right place, friend. Let's dig in. Hello, Thyroid Thrivers, and welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Jenny Mahar. I'm so glad to be here with you today. And I would like to talk to you today about a very common question I get about food sensitivity testing. Is it worth it? Someone just brought this up in my Thrivers Club community, which is my private group health coaching community. If you're interested in learning more, I will put the link in the show notes for you for the Thrivers Club. But someone in our private community asked, hey, I've been looking at these food sensitivity test kits that you can order them yourself from different online testing platforms and stuff. And she was considering ordering one. And she was like, is it worth it? Should I do this? This is a very good question. So we're going to cover it today really quickly. So is food sensitivity testing worth it? This is a great question and what we're going to talk about today. So actually, the truth is what she asked is, she said, should I do this food allergy test? And I said, well, just to confirm, is this test measuring IgE reactions or IgG? And she said, well, what's the difference? That's really kind of step one of where we need to start this conversation, is knowing the difference between food allergy testing and food sensitivity testing. Okay, so IgG or immunoglobulin G testing is for food sensitivities, whereas IgE testing or immunoglobulin E testing is for food allergies. And those reactions are different because food sensitivities are non-life-threatening typically. They might make you uncomfortable, but it's not like a food allergy that can cause an anaphylactic, life-threatening reaction where you can't breathe, you're swelling up, you've got to get out your EpiPen and all that stuff. So just to kind of clarify here, especially for safety purposes, we kind of got to know what we're talking about. And there is that difference between food sensitivity and food allergy testing. There can be crossover between the two reactions, depending on how your body reacts to the foods. But the big difference is that the IgE reactions the food allergy reactions can sometimes be severe and life-threatening, like getting anaphylaxis from eating shrimp, for example. Now, IgG tests, immunoglobulin G tests, are meant to measure food sensitivities, which typically aren't as severe as true allergies. This is where we're talking about like the gassiness after dairy or the headaches from eating chocolate type of reaction. And now the tricky thing about food sensitivity testing is that the results can be inconsistent, which makes conventional medical practitioners, and even in some cases, functional medical practitioners, disregard the validity of food sensitivity testing because they say the results are inconsistent. There was a really interesting piece that Chris Kresser did on this, where he sent 2 vials of blood from the same person taken at the same time to the same lab to have the same food sensitivity testing done. So, eliminating variables here, sent them to the same lab. And this was like the most highly regarded, or one of the most highly regarded food sensitivity testing labs around. And the results that came back were different. There were actually some significant differences in them. So that's the reason why you will hear some experts say food sensitivity testing isn't worth it. The results are unreliable. Now I have to pause here and kind of call out conventional medicine, because if you look into it, if you look into food allergy testing, there is a very high rate of false positives and false negatives. So those tests can also be unreliable too. My personal feeling as a health coach, for what it's worth, is the test should be taken with a grain of salt. And having a kiddo who has life threatening food allergies to tree nuts and shrimp, I have heard from his allergist that they're actually kind of amending their thinking about food allergy testing because there are so many false positives and false negatives. But with the false positives, it makes people think that they have life-threatening food allergies to things that they're not actually allergic to, and so they cut out these foods for no reason. And so they're kind of shifting their approach. And I just heard this at his 2024 appointment. She said, we're really kind of rethinking how we do the testing and what our recommendations are. And of course, with allergies, because they're life threatening, they really have to balance that with safety. So, but just for what it's worth, there is inconsistencies to these food sensitivity testing results, and there can be inaccuracies to food allergy testing results. As far as food sensitivity testing goes, this is what we're going to focus on today. We can end our conversation about food allergies here and really just focus on food sensitivity testing, which is what a lot of us as thyroid thrivers want to know. What foods should I avoid eating because the foods I'm sensitive to are the ones that are going to cause inflammation in my body. They're going to make my symptoms worse. They could, if I have thyroid autoimmunity, they could make my autoimmunity worse. They could spike my antibodies. They could worsen my leaky gut. It's just this whole cycle, right? So a big part of the thinking around like this whole system of eliminating the foods that aren't right for us and eating more of the foods that are right for us is about eliminating foods that we're sensitive to so that we can lower our inflammation and feel better. And wouldn't it be nice if instead of having to go through a 30, 60, or 90-day elimination diet, it is an undertaking. It's an ordeal and it's a very powerful positive tool. I don't want to knock it. And it's something I've done several times and something I absolutely work with my health coaching clients on. I have a ton of resources, to help you through your elimination diet, whether you're trying paleo, whether you're just trying to go gluten-free, whether you're doing the autoimmune protocol or the elimination provocation diet. I have tons of resources on that for you in the Thrivers Club and on how that elimination reintroduction process works. And the basic idea is we eliminate one or many foods that we could potentially be sensitive to see how our body responds. And then we do a follow-up experiment of reintroducing those foods to see, well, what's the reaction? Do I feel better when I've eliminated that food for, say, 30, 60, 90 days? And if I try reintroducing it, then what happens? Now, that's something that's food sensitivity specific because those reactions like the headaches, the bloating, it could be, and the reactions can be surprising. They're not always GI related. It could be joint pain. It could be skin issues like rashes or dry skin. It could be brain fog. It could be like your cognition. I know when I eat a bunch of gluten, I get grouchy. Like it affects my mood and it affects my skin and it makes me bloated and all kinds of other things. I've learned that through that elimination reintroduction trial process. So that is what I think people are hoping to avoid and not have to go through when they get food sensitivity testing. Sometimes that's what they're hoping is, well, if I could just skip that whole process and just do a blood test, it'll take an hour at the lab or whatever. I draw a vial of blood, I send it off, and I get a piece of paper that tells me you have strong reactions to cheese, eggs, milk, etc. Whey, wheat, grains. Some of these food sensitivity tests will test you for 50 foods, 100 foods, 150 foods. So you can really get pretty detailed results from these. And it would be super nice if if it was that simple, if a blood test could just tell us what to eat and what not to eat as thyroid patients, as people with chronic illness, as many of us, most of us really, with autoimmune disease. But Still, the gold standard for determining your food sensitivities is an elimination reintroduction trial, like we just talked about. And the reason why is because you get that firsthand physiological feedback from an elimination reintroduction trial of foods that you suspect you may be sensitive to. So, with a blood test, that you would have to like test again. Then, like Chris Kresser did that experiment, you send the results in, you get different results. It can be confusing. And I think the reason why a lot of practitioners discourage people from getting food sensitivity testing is they take those results, which can be somewhat unreliable, to be frank. They can be somewhat unreliable, but they take those results as gospel and then they're cutting out otherwise healthy foods for no reason when they're not actually sensitive to them. Does that make sense? So here's my personal 2 cents and my personal experience with this. I am not against food sensitivity testing. I think that it can be helpful, but we have to take those results with a grain of salt. And I'll tell you why. So I've had food sensitivity testing done, and that was my experience, is that it was really good for clues, but I did have to kind of take the results with a grain of salt, not as set in stone. Food sensitivity testing was valuable to me because what it did is it alerted me to some food sensitivities that I hadn't really considered that were a surprise. And it gave me ideas about what rocks should I look under when it comes to trying to identify what foods are not right for me. What rocks should I look under what foods are worth me experimenting with eliminating? I think that is a wonderful use of a food sensitivity test, because if you look at that food sensitivity test, like for me, the thing that I really noticed on there is I was highly reactive to all eggs, not just chicken eggs, but duck eggs, and not just egg yolks, but egg whites, like all parts of the eggs, all types of eggs, high sensitivity, showing high IgG reactions to eggs on this food sensitivity test. Now, at the time that I did it, it was early on in my healing journey. So this was about 2015. I was diagnosed in 2011. I went through hell from 2011 to 2015 with my hypothyroidism, which I didn't know at the time was Hashimoto's. I had horrible symptoms. I was tired and sick like all day, every day. Then in 2015, I found a new doctor. I started working with a holistically oriented doctor, a naturopath, and we did food sensitivity testing. And she kind of gave me the rundown on this. But I saw that and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know why I didn't think of that. I have been eating so many eggs because at the time I had already come to learn about my body that I don't thrive on gluten. And when you cut out gluten, a lot of breakfast foods get eliminated. Your bagels, your waffles, your toast. And of course, there are gluten-free alternatives to these. I have all kinds of recipes, gluten-free alternative recipes, breakfast recipes. I have a free breakfast guide actually I can put in the show notes for you. So you can download that. We're all kinds of delicious, thyroid-friendly, gluten and dairy-free breakfasts, right? And a couple of those include eggs, but a lot of them don't, because eggs are a fairly common food sensitivity for people. Now, I don't know why the thought never crossed my mind that eggs could be one of my major food sensitivities. And when I had the test done, I had a history of having really bad stomach pain. It was never really diagnosed, even though I think it's called endoscopy, where they anesthetized me, they knocked me out and they put a camera down my throat and like looked in my stomach. I had radioactive dye and scans to see like, is my gallbladder working? They did all this testing, in very invasive testing, just to tell me we don't really know. And that is a really tricky thing when you're having stomach issues. Like what I was having were these severe bouts of very crampy stomach pain where I would feel it radiating all the way around to my back, and I would end up curled in the fetal position for like an hour. And sometimes it would hit me like at the grocery store, and I would have to basically leave my cart in the aisle and go to my car and just cry and rock in a ball for like an hour until this awful stomach pain would go away. Now, they couldn't tell me why that was happening. They never did food sensitivity testing on me. They never mentioned food sensitivity testing. They put me on a proton pump inhibitor long term, which is not the way those drugs are supposed to be used and very unhealthy for your bone health. Luckily, I got off those fairly quickly by I was just like, I basically went on a bland diet trying to figure out like what the heck with this stomach pain. It was pretty awful. And I saw that food sensitivity testing and I went, oh my gosh, I have been eating so many more eggs since I cut out gluten because eggs are a gluten and dairy free breakfast food. And I had already cut out gluten. I was already kind of minimizing dairy too. So I'm like, it was just one of those aha moments for me. And what I found is that I was able to completely get rid of debilitating stomach pain, not by eliminating eggs, but just by reducing them. Can I eat eggs? Totally. Can I eat them every day? Absolutely not. So that's what that showed me. And that's been like gold to me. It also really struck me because I was like, wait a minute. Mom is kind of sensitive to eggs, but can eat them. She said her dad, my grandfather, was kind of had the same thing, sensitive to eggs, but could eat them. My son has the same egg sensitivity, and he actually has the same really, really bad stomach pain if he gets exposed to especially undercooked egg. When he was younger and he wanted to eat eggs, and we were learning about his food sensitivity testing, he went through some rough times with that. But I was so glad to know, like, but this is what I go through with eggs. I know how bad your stomach feels right now because I've been through it. We just have to really be careful about how much we eat. And with him, a lot of it is, and his allergist, recommended this, the more cooked they are, the more easy they can be for some people to tolerate. So that was super interesting. And that made that food sensitivity testing worth its weight in gold to me. So when I asked my son's allergist, hey, can we get him a food sensitivity test? And she went off about how it was just holistic baloney, basically, and totally invalid. She and I got into a fight because I told her, you've got a newspaper article on your bulletin board in your office that says food allergy testing is inaccurate and incorrect 50% of the time. How is it any different? I think these are tools. And what we have to do is we have to trust our own bodies. I think we use these tools and then you like a food sensitivity test, and you hold that food sensitivity test up to the real life test of an elimination trial. Do I actually feel better when I eliminate eggs? Yes. Can I tolerate some eggs? Yes. Can I tolerate, a certain threshold of eggs? I have defined those thresholds. Like I can't eat eggs every day. So now eggs are not a problem for me anymore because of that food sensitivity test. So that was very, very valuable for me. And that's a story that I tell to people when they ask me, is food sensitivity testing worth it? Now, there were other things on my food sensitivity test, like clams or pineapple, that showed that I was sensitive to them. I eliminated those foods. I didn't notice a difference. I ate those foods. I didn't notice a difference. I choose not to eliminate clams and pineapple from my diet if I'm not noticing any kind of negative reaction. Those are two foods with a lot of very healthy qualities to them. So why would I cut those out when A, I enjoy them, and B, I didn't actually notice any noticeable result from eliminating them, even though they were on my food sensitivity test? So I hope that's kind of making sense. So ask yourself, if you're considering getting food sensitivity testing, what part of the test results feel true to me? If you've gotten food sensitivity tests, what part of the test results feel true to me? What part of the test results feel like, oh my gosh, duh. Like my thing with it, like it was just like, oh my God, how did I not realize eggs? I know this is a genetic thing in my family. Is there anything like that on there for you? And are there other things that make you go, you know what? This is worth conducting an elimination trial and maybe an elimination reintroduction trial to see, like, is this actually causing a reaction? And then maybe there's some random things on there that are lower on that priority list. Maybe they're not the first ones you do the elimination reintroduction trial for, but maybe down the road, or just as you enjoy those random things, like for me, the clams and pineapple, where I'd have them once in a while and go, I feel fine. I don't notice any headaches. I don't notice any bloating, any joint pain, so I eat those foods. So, yeah, ask yourself what's worth exploring for you, what's worth doing that elimination reintroduction trial to confirm. And then you can get that further confirmation to see, are those foods definitely causing a reaction? And of course, always you want to be working with your healthcare practitioner on these things and doing what's right for you nutritionally and medically speaking. This is not in any way, meant to be prescriptive medical advice for you. This is education about food sensitivity testing and some of nuances of it. So a lot of thyroid experts tend to recommend avoiding several foods, and that can be really discouraging for people. It can be emotionally difficult. Food is an important part of how we connect with other people, our relationships. So I totally get that it's a lot more complicated than just, oh, just cut out gluten and dairy and sugar and you'll feel better. For some people, it's like, well, wait a minute. Am I really even sensitive to dairy? Some of us aren't. A lot of us are, but some of us aren't. Some of us can tolerate some of these things. So that elimination reintroduction trial is what experts still consider the gold standard. Maybe there will someday be new testing technology that changes that. But in 2024, as I'm recording this, they do still consider the elimination reintroduction trial as the gold standard and food sensitivity testing as far less reliable, but I think still valuable to give you clues. So, if you're interested in getting food sensitivity testing, if you've had a food sensitivity test, take the results with a grain of salt. And if you suspect that the foods on the test may be an issue, do an elimination reintroduction trial. And you can learn how to do that in the Thrivers Club. I have tons of educational materials, recipes, guides. I have a food sensitivity and symptom tracker. There's a workshop on the elimination reintroduction trial. We do monthly wellness challenges where you can use that framework and support system to conduct your own customized elimination reintroduction trial. There's so many ways that you can go through this. You don't have to go through it alone. Okay. And the Thrivers Club is the best place for me to be able to help you personally with that process. When you become a Thrivers Club member, you get access to me 24/7 in the Thrivers Club community. You can ask a question anytime. I get back to people as soon as possible, typically within 24 hours. I can point you towards resources. And of course, there's other people in there who have been through it and who can cheer you on. And it's so positive. This can be a lonely journey without the support of other people who get it and who know what it's like to face some of these things, who understand this is more than just me being high maintenance with my food restrictions, with being gluten free or dairy free. A lot of people say, oh, that's just a fad, or it's just, you're just being high maintenance. It's a lot more than that. It is a big part of how we get to feeling our best as thyroid patients. Food is medicine. It can help us feel our best, or it can make us feel our worst, depending on what we're eating. And we might be eating certain foods that are otherwise healthy for some people, but that for us aren't right, that are causing a reaction, or that for us, maybe we have certain thresholds of how much of a certain food we can have before it becomes problematic, like for me with eggs. So I hope that's all kind of giving you some clarity about how this process works and about the value and the pitfalls of food sensitivity testing. Thanks so much for tuning in to today's show. If you want to learn more about thyroid-friendly food and lifestyle, I invite you to download my free thyroid-friendly grocery guide. It features over 130 delicious, colorful, nutrient-dense whole foods to choose from to create thyroid-friendly meals from. It's a wonderful place to start, and it's a great place for you and I to get connected. After you download my free thyroid-friendly grocery guide, I'll put you on my free weekly newsletter where I will deliver my fresh content, recipes, food, and lifestyle inspiration to you every week directly to your inbox for free. So to download that free thyroid-friendly grocery guide, you can go to hypothyroidchef.com/grocery. I'll put that link in the show notes for you. But once again, that's hypothyroidchef.com/grocery. Okay, friend. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Ginny Mahar, wishing you happy cooking, happy thriving, and the best of health. See you next time. Thanks so much for spending this time with me and tuning into today's episode of the Thyroid-Healthy Bites podcast. If you've enjoyed today's show, please don't forget to like, subscribe, or leave a review on your podcast platform of choice. Your support makes this show possible. For more thyroid-healthy food and lifestyle inspiration, check out my free library of thyroid-friendly recipes and lifestyle content at hypothyroidchef.com and the Hypothyroid Chef YouTube channel. As we wrap it up, head to the show notes for information and links to everything we talked about today, along with the link to my free thyroid-friendly grocery guide download. I'm Ginny Mahar, your thyroid health and cooking coach, wishing you happy cooking, happy thriving, and the best of health. See you next time.